listen.
His statement / question is, how awesome is J-Gas? Go ahead, you can be honest.
J-Gas, the James Gunn Appreciation Society, is completely awesome. We're a society of appreciators. We appreciate each other, right. And I like that. I think that's better than the James Gunn fan site because it's a give and take thing. I appreciate them. They appreciate me. We appreciate each other individually. We're all about appreciation at the James Gunn Appreciation Society.
So Guardians of the Galaxy has only had 3 movies. I already think they're aiming at Star Wars as being the better space opera. I mean, they already got a theme park ride. Hell, they actually have a good holiday special. But it's also one of those trilogies that Pixar did and grew up as the fans got older, making that finale hit so much harder. Because obviously it's not a goodbye to the Guardians, but a goodbye to James Gunn and his team. Because it kind of revealed that he was helping oversee a lot more movies in the MCU than we thought. So to market this movie by kind of dissing the entire last phase is crazy.
Best Marvel movie since Endgame.
That is the gist of it.
Yeah, they're really gonna miss him.
All the clues for being a filmmaker, which is you got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, and know when to run.
This is a dude who somehow made us care about a talking tree and a raccoon who talks like Joe Pesci. Someone who snuck into the MCU and didn't just give a. He gave a.
You know, the Russo brothers had one in Endgame at one point, but at the end of the day, the Russo brothers were like, they didn't want that to be their legacy. Kevin said, so if you want that to be your legacy, then sure. And I said, Kevin, if you think you're scaring me away instead of just enticing me even more.
There's a button under the handle. Press that in.
Okay. Now what?
Open the door.
And now he's left the FCU. So personally, I definitely think it's worth the combo price. And I know that they released it in multiple formats. They talked about 40X being this way for them to add more sound effects so that it wouldn't get in the way of the dialogue, which I thought was pretty interesting. I don't usually care for Screen X, but even those frames of Groot extending all the way, I thought looked pretty awesome. But for me, it's always going to be IMAX. I even saw it in 3D, which isn't super necessary, but I think they look cool for the space scenes. But it's the fact that for the entire 2.5 hours, the full frame is on full display, meaning that you get to see more of the sets, the characters, and they won't be cutting Kraglin's little antenna thingy. I will be making a full timeline for the Guardians as I'm cutting up all 3, so I'm going to try to keep this one as little spoilers as possible, but I'm just going to be appreciating how this man had it planned from the start.
Well, it's certainly the end of the trilogy, and it's the last time these Guardians of the Galaxy will ever be on screen together.
Oh, that's it, for sure.
Let me explain. Now, one of the reasons that his films have always stood out is because he finds a way to hijack a big studio film to explore his inner psyche instead of just selling merch. Just starting with the biggest stars that he has in Peter and Gamora, he wrote them a love story that doesn't even happen. The love is there, but it was always about them learning to like themselves before they can give it to other people. I personally like Pratt when he's playing these everyday heroes on the come up who, screw up. Because I know that he's always going to take down the aliens, whatever he's in, right? But I think it's more interesting to have a character who makes mistakes and then learns from them.
And you're just telling me now?
I didn't want you to get freaked out. Freaked out? Like that.
Even with Gamora, having her be a badass who's willing to cause an incursion just because she wants to leave Papa Thanos.
So many times, in comic books especially, people die and come back and die and come back, and it kind of makes death meaningless. And so that makes the sacrifice, the story point meaningless. And I think with this, it was, Gamora died in Infinity War, and she is dead. This is not Gamora. It is Gamora, but it's a different version of her, and she has different experiences, which makes her a different person completely.
Drax and Mantis are the odd couple who keep things light.
Drax, stay here with Rocket. Mantis, watch Drax.
Dave kills it as a protector who knows how evil the world can be, and it seems like he repeats what's said to him.
Idiots!
Guardians is a fable about childhood trauma that takes place in outer space. And it's very emotional, but it's in outer space. We don't have to deal with real humans.
Mantis is also just a caring one, who's also just funny in the goofiest way possible. She can observe everyone's pain and emotions, while also being the one who goes through more pain and emotion, but it's their laughs that cover up their scars. Nebula surprisingly ended up becoming one of the biggest characters because she ends up being the epitome of all of them, because literally she's ripped piece by piece. Imagine not just being used as scraps by your father, but knowing that you weren't even worthy enough to be sacrificed like he wanted. She's one of the best examples of how you can find family outside of those who raised you, and how while everyone sees you as a side character, your main storyline can help guide others through their pain.
Now here I am, 10 years later, and I'm an official Guardian!
Honestly, she evolved more than Gamora Gamora, because poor girl's been restarted like 3 times. But it's her sister Nebula who's been upgraded the most and has the most patience.
I was 8 years old when I left Earth.
You want me to drive?
No.
I'll drive.
Figure out how to put it in backwards.
In every chair she's in.
After 10 years of doing this, and it's like a second skin that they glued to me, so I like peeled the whole thing off, and then I was like, should I keep it? And I was like, no, because that looks like something Hannibal Lecter would do.
And that leads to another part of Gunn's movies where the production just excels, you know? Not only does his team create some of the best Marvel sets, in my opinion, but they even broke the world record with the most prosthetics used in a movie with over 22,000. They not only furried up all these extras for this new planet, but even made an entire new language for these humanimals. The bad guy's Leatherface was so good, it made me squirm like I was reading Death of the Family. They even had the guards wearing these organically grown skin suits as armor.
When you first lay eyes on it, it's disturbing. It looks somewhat like if a lobster was made out of keloid scars and tried to be disguised as a bread basket in a fancy restaurant. That's what you're looking at.
There was also that Chris Pratt body double that was like actually a body double. They didn't pull an American Sniper, baby. They might have gone 2 out.
They made an incredibly lifelike, full-scale doll that she could carry specifically for that scene.
It was
well done.
So
it
realistic.
was so creepy.
Like the thing had pores on its face. It had
Down to literally the moles, the hair, the pores.
It had little hairs coming out of its face.
It was
so lifelike.
So lifelike.
But the thing is, like, we had to like lock it in a room because like it could have been used for like dark purposes. If you know what I mean. If
On top of that, he's pushing what CGI wonders can be as he homages classics like Oldboy with the hallway scene. He made the suit scenes feel less MCU and more like Umbrella Academy. But it's how he fills that space that matters. One of my favorite quotes that they've had on set was that he doesn't look to hire good actors, he looks to hire good people, and that's why he's always had a role for his buddy Lex Luthor. It's why he recast Linda Cardellini as Lila the Otter, who also did the mocap, Will Poulter, who legit cosplayed as the Sid meme he hated in order to stop bullying, and Maria Bakalova, who plays Cosmo the dog, which was a much bigger cosign than I expected.
My dog would meet every person that came in.
If your dog didn't like someone, would you have not cast them?
It happened.
Oh yeah.
There was somebody who, pretty big star, who wanted to be Nebula, and she was like,
oh no.
I was like,
Also, thank.
it was Meryl Streep.
Now the villain. I know people hate Ronan from the first, even though I'd argue that, Gunn got to flex Thanos for the first time in that movie. But Ego has really grown on me, and the High Evolutionary has to be the most despicable of them all. Like, if you have a pet, you are looking into their eyes when they close up on Rocket.
I literally saw my dog's eyes. I have a schnoodle called Cicero, and I saw his face, and I was like, I am going to hell.
This man is cruel. Like, I saw people gasping at the beginning when Cosmo was called a bad dog, yet they were not ready for the rest of this movie. It's willing to go there, and it gets so bad, but luckily the guy's actually funny in real life, which is good to see.
And between takes, James said, can I have a word with you? And I joked, I said, as an actor wondering if this is when you get fired, I joked, is this when you thought you'd hired Chiwetel Ejiofor but hired Chukwudi Iwuji by mistake?
To me, I also think it speaks volumes to these big sets in Hollywood, especially since he considers Rocket his IP. He's created this corporation and placed it in a place where he can bypass restrictions, probably taxes, and is so mad that his proprietary creation knows more than him.
And one of the first things James said to me was like, I've written this character. I don't know if Marvel know exactly who this character is. I have it in my head and I need you to ground it.
It is funny how the poster reads once more with feeling, because just the amount of music he was able to play on set was a flex. Getting the Beastie Boys to give you the soundtrack rights, clearing songs that you played at your wedding. I did not realize how far up this guy was that he has full reign.
Basically, we do improvs where he sort of puppeteers improvisation with the various actors.
Oh, yeah,
like,
constantly.
Dave say this, Karen say this.
Yeah.
Finally, there's the root of it all with Rocket and Groot, who I still can't believe are voiced by some of the biggest actors in the world.
I'm finishing this so we can listen to tunes while we work. You got anger issues. Mature yourself. I'm gonna kick you. I'm gonna kill you.
I am Groot.
The fact that Vin not only recorded the same lines for different languages, but had a 50-page script of I Am Groots that were translated for him, I think is what gives this character so much emotion. The fact that this man came in with stilts to record, that he creates Groot-inspired jackets for each premiere, and then gives them away to charity. Like, I know I said these stories ain't meant for merch, but damn was that the best Funko Pop I bought. And now I kind of want to go get one for Thick Groot.
He's giving off that
Swole
big
vibe.
tree energy.
There's also been that running bit on how the closer you get to Groot, the better you get at understanding him. And in the third, you do have a moment where every single Guardian translates for him until we all understand him.
You're all just making up stuff that he's saying, right?
Essentially, people that are familiar with him can understand him, but if you aren't familiar with him because he has a hardened larynx, you can't understand the nuance of his speech.
Then there's Rocket.
Rocket is me. In some ways, sometimes I feel like this is my autobiography, as ridiculous as it sounds.
Not only does Gunn consider him the story of his soul, but also has had his brother do all the mocap on set for Rocket, even voicing young Rocket in the new one, so you can say the bros are close.
I married them.
He did. You officiated at the wedding.
I officiated the wedding.
And I officiated his wedding.
Yes,
so.
that's true.
It's that personal side to things that makes these movies feel different than your director of the week. Like no other movie trilogy has ended with credits that looked like a scrapbook. It had behind-the-scene photos with his family, highlighted his crew who's probably all going to DC with him, and even shouted out the J-Gas. Pretty much, they walk the talk of this series, which is to show compassion and empathy to everyone who crosses your way. How no matter what timeline this crazy universe sends you down, it really is about the friends they made along the galaxy.
Well, I think I was an angry kid that grew up, a punk rock kid from Missouri that kind of used my anger to push everybody away from me and, used my humor to push everybody away from me. And little by little, as I've gotten older, I've learned that, you can let people in, you can trust other people sometimes, you can be vulnerable, you can express fear, express sadness, and those things are okay. And I think that's the journey, Rocket has been on over these 3 movies.